Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is pick. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear pick used is to mean to take hold and remove something from where it is growing. So this verb is commonly used with fruits and vegetables, and that idea that you are removing it from the tree or the plant where it might be growing. Fall is a time that many people will go out into orchards and pick apples, right? So they're going to go up to a tree, grab, and remove the apple from the tree. A second way you might hear pick used is to mean to choose someone or something from many options or many choices. This sometimes will happen when you're playing games. You might pick teams, so each person kind of going back and forth and selecting team members. A third way you might hear pick used, particularly if you're into music, is to refer to the action of plucking the strings of a guitar or a banjo. You should know that pick is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we need to do is add ing to form picking. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, pick, ends in an unvoiced K sound, so our past tense ending is going to make a T sound. Picked, picked. Okay. Now, I've shared three ways that we can use this verb pick, but there's actually so many more. Pick is a very common phrasal verb, and today we're going to focus at looking at some of the many different ways we can continue to use this verb. The first phrasal verb that we'll look at is to pick apart. This can mean to intensely analyze or criticize something, and you're generally looking for faults, mistakes, or bad parts of the person or object or thing that you are intensely analyzing. An example of this could be, my teacher always picks apart my papers. So this sentence is pretty close to what I've heard students say over the years. They feel like teachers many times intensely analyze and criticize and only look for mistakes or errors. I'm going to point out that this sentence picks apart is an example of the simple present. Teacher, my teacher is singular, so you see that S on the end of our verb. The next phrasal verb we'll look at is pick at. This can have a number of different meanings. We're going to look at three of them. The first is to be very critical about something. Another word you might hear used similarly is to nag. So, an example of this is he picking at his wife again? So, is he being really critical? Um, uh, again, maybe complaining, that idea of nagging. Here, is he picking at is an example of a yes or no question in the present progressive or the present continuous. The second way we could use pick at would mean to eat a very small amount of food and not be really interested in it. So let's take a look at an example of this. Do you think he's sick? He never picks at his dinner, but he is today. So sometimes this idea of not being very interested in eating might be a sign that a small child isn't feeling well. I know many parents sort of rely on that, looking for different signs, particularly when the child is so small that they can't talk and share and explain maybe how they're feeling or what's going on with their own bodies. So he never picks at is again another example of simple present. I'm using the subject he, which is singular, so I've added that s onto the verb. Our third way of using pick at is to mean to pull at something with one's fingertips. Okay, let's take a look at an example of this. Don't pick at the scab. Let it heal. Okay, so a scab is a place maybe where you've had a cut or a scrape, and then it begins to kind of grow and heal over it, right? And so a lot of people have the urge to pull at the scab with their fingertips. Generally, that's not great for healing because you can, if you remove a scab too early, it could start bleeding again. I think chances of infection increase, etc. So the sentence here, don't pick at the scab, that's an example of a negative imperative or a negative command. Now let's move on to a new phrasal verb, pick from. This is going to go back to one of our main definitions. I think it was our second one here of making a selection from some larger group. So what comes after from in this case is going to be kind of that larger group. An example could be each person could pick one cookie from the bakery case. Okay, so the bakery case, that's that larger group. And here the sentence could pick one cookie from. This is an example of past ability. So I've got could, the modal there, and then I'm using the base verb with it. The last phrasal verb on this page that we're going to look at is pick off. This can be used a few different ways. We'll just focus on one right now, and that is to intercept something or intercept someone else that was trying to obtain something else. An example of this could be, did they pick off the pass? So you'll frequently hear pick off used in connection to sports, particularly when there is a ball or other object being passed from one to another. So when one teammate goes to pass to another, but someone from the opposing team comes in and catches it, right? We might call that a pick off, or we might say the pass was picked off. Another example of this could be the sentence, she is picking off her old firm's clients. So what this means is that sort of she's taking the clients from her previous company. So again, that idea of interfering with something else that others are doing. So the question, did they pick off? That's an example of the simple past tense, just a yes or no. And the sentence, she is picking off, is an example of an affirmative present progressive or present continuous sentence. Let's continue looking at some more phrasal verbs. The next one will be pick on. This generally means to bother, annoy, or make fun of someone. An example of this could be, she always picks on her younger brother. This simple present sentence could describe, I think, a lot of older siblings and how they treat their younger ones sometimes. They might bother, annoy them, or make fun of them. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to pick out. Generally, that means you're selecting something or you're lifting up and removing something. An example of this might be, I'm going to pick out the olives first, right? So here, this sentence can actually apply to me. I do not enjoy eating olives. So when they're in certain foods or on pizzas, right, I might lift up and remove them before I continue to eat the rest of the meal. A second way to use pick out is to mean to distinguish from a group. An example of this could be, we won't pick him out from the crowd. So we're not going to be able to distinguish this person from a group of people. The last two sentences I've given you are examples of the simple future. The first used be going to. This might be used where we have a plan. Here, won't pick him out. This is almost like kind of a negative prediction here. I'm not going to be able to distinguish this person from the crowd of people. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to pick over. This means that generally something is being selected and maybe even the best parts are being removed. An example of this could be, we arrived late and the buffet was picked over. Okay, so it means all the best foods from this particular arrangement for a meal were gone. Was picked over is an example of the passive voice in the simple past tense. The next phrasal verb we'll look at is pick up. This can have a couple different meanings. One would be to collect and buy something. An example of this, can you pick up some tomatoes on your way home? So, can you buy or purchase these? This is a yes or no question regarding ability, right? Are you able to do this task for us or for the family? A second way you might hear pick up used is to mean to learn something quickly. An example of that, you are picking up English so quickly, right? You're learning something at a great rate or at a great speed. The last phrasal verb we'll look at today is to pick up after. This generally means that someone is cleaning a mess that someone else has made. Now, there are ways where you could be referring to cleaning up after oneself, and you're going to see that reflexive verb used then, pick up after yourself. So, clean up your own mess. But generally, you might hear it used like in this question, will you pick up after the kids before bed? So here, someone is asking a question in the simple future here, and asking them, will you clean up the kids' mess before you go to bed? Now, let's spend a little time looking at some words that are related to our verb pick. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So it has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. Just like our verb, this noun can have a number of different meanings. We'll look at three. The first is the act of selecting something from among a group of options. You might hear it used like this. You can take your pick of seats. So maybe you go into a theater or a sporting event, right? And here they're telling you, sit wherever you want. Select where you want to sit from any of these places. A second way to use the noun pick is to refer to a person or thing that is thought to be or perceived as the best in a particular group. Here's an example of how you might hear that used. That puppy is the pick of the litter. So, litter is generally used to refer to groups of animals where more than one is born at a time. So you might have 3, 4, 5 puppies born in one sort of act of birthing. And so here, one is thought to be the best out of that group. A third way you might hear pick used is to refer to a person or thing that has been selected. An example of this, Charlie Collier was the first pick in the WNBA draft. Okay, so this happens with a lot of our sporting leagues. A way for new players to sort of enter is they go from team to team, and each team, I'm going to use the verb here, picks one person. And so after that, the person whom they have selected is referred to as their first pick, the second pick, etc. Another related word that you might hear is the noun pickup. This can be used a few different ways, but I think the way you might hear it used most often is to refer to a small truck that has an enclosed cab, so doors, but an open back. So you might even hear kind of the full phrase, a pickup truck. Okay. A way you might just hear the question though is, are you going to buy a new pickup, right? These can be really useful for certain types of work. Many companies buy pickups for their employees to drive to work sites and haul tools and materials and things. The last thing we're going to look at today is the phrase to pick a lock. If you watch a lot of movies, you might hear this phrase. Sometimes it comes up in TV shows as well. But the action that's being described in this phrase is someone is opening a lock with another item that is not the proper key. So someone might do it if they've lost their key, but many times this act of picking a lock is done by a criminal or someone who's trying to steal an object or get access to something they should not have access to. An example of this phrase in a sentence might be, again, I'm thinking of a movie here, one character saying to another, "Can you pick a lock?" right? As they're creating this plan. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.